Letecia Stauch's daughter, Harley Hunt, was in court to testify this week. Letecia's been on trial for the murder of her 11-year-old stepson, Gannon Stauch. Harley Hunt was visibly upset on the stand. She talked about not seeing her mom since 2020, since the day that Letecia got arrested. And there was some new information, or I guess you could say lies, that were brought forth about Letecia and what she's been saying to her daughter for, I guess, years pretty much. So we're going to get into the details of Harley's testimony. I'm going to walk you through it. So now let's get into it. The first bombshell that we heard in court from Harley was about her father. Her father has been dead for quite a few years. However, she was told that he was killed in a robbery by Letecia, when in fact, Harley found out that it was due to an overdose, and she said it was only recently that she found out.
What was your father's name?
Chance.
Hunt?
Yes.
Do you remember when he died?
Yes, when I was 12 in October.
So would that have been October 2000? Help me out with the math here.
12 or 14.
Sometime in that time frame?
Yeah.
When your father passed away, were Albert and your mom married?
Yes.
Do you know how your dad passed away?
Yes.
How did he die?
An overdose.
And when did you first learn that?
This past week.
What were you told how he died before?
That someone came in and robbed him and killed him.
And who told you that?
My mom.
Had she ever told you the truth as to how your dad died?
No.
How'd you learn about that then?
The internet.
She talked about how she and Letecia moved around a lot. She also said that Letecia didn't like to be anywhere that she lived, it seemed. Myrtle Beach, didn't like it there. Moved to Charleston, didn't like it there. Moved back to Myrtle Beach, didn't like it there. Alaska, didn't like it. She also talked about how Al and Letecia seemed to argue quite often. She would protect the kids, meaning Gannon and Lena, and bring them in a different room, turn the TV up so they didn't have to hear them argue. She said, though, when Al and Letecia were away for their anniversary, Letecia actually hired a babysitter, and Harley said she was upset about that. They didn't go into detail about it. Then they talked about the text about the candle incident. That happened the night before Gannon was murdered, and she said she was confused as to what Letecia was talking about through these texts. She thought that Letecia was talking about one of the dogs getting fire or having fire on them or being burned, but it wasn't quite clear to her at first. And then it started to be about Gannon. She did say that night that Letecia called the firefighter. She said a firefighter that she knew. And then Gannon ended up on the street saying, "I hate my life." She said that was weird because Letecia told her that. And she said that that's the first that she's ever heard Gannon even say anything like that. She also said that it was weird about the candle incident because Gannon wasn't the type of kid to be going around a candle. She's never known him to be doing that. And there was quite a few things that she said about that night. She said it seemed weird in the house. She said Letecia asked Harley to go downstairs to say goodnight to Gannon. She said that was weird. She never did that before, wasn't told that before. And Letecia told Harley that Gannon is acting weird. I don't know what's going on with him. And the next day when Gannon went missing and murdered, Letecia left the phone at home. Harley said that was unusual for her as well, to not have her phone, because she always has her phone with her. But when Harley came home that afternoon from work, she said she saw Gannon's little sister on her bike, but she said the normal routine typically was for the kids to get home from school, they get their snacks, they do their homework, and then they can go and play. And Letecia even said that in a interview of some sort, one of the interviews, that she said that was a typical routine. I think that was the night that she actually reported Gannon missing. But when Harley got home from work, she sent Harley and little sister Lena to the dollar store that day to pick up some supplies. In court, they talked about the supplies that Harley got and the receipt, but what they didn't say was those supplies were part of what Letecia used to clean up the bloodstains from Gannon's room, etc. And what they also didn't talk about was that receipt actually ended up in Letecia's car later on. Now, when Harley got back home from the dollar store, she talked in court about looking in Gannon's backpack and saw that there was a little cigar called Swisher Sweets in his backpack. She said she found that odd because it wasn't like Gannon to have that. She wondered how a kid would even get it, and she also noted that the cigar wasn't hidden anywhere.
Prior to the police getting there, do you remember your mom telling you to look at Gannon's backpack to see if there's...
Yes.
You do that?
Yes.
What did you see in Gannon's backpack during this time?
When you open the backpack, you had a folder in there, and in the folder was a Swisher Sweets.
And what is a Swisher Sweets?
Like a cigar roll thing.
What did you think about when you saw a cigar in Gannon's backpack?
Wasn't like him, and I was like, I don't know how a kid got this.
Well, what did you think about the Swisher Sweet being in the backpack and your mother having you go search his backpack?
For one, I didn't understand why it was in his backpack, and it's not like it was trying to be hidden because it was, as soon as you opened it, it was right there, so.
So if it was Gannon's Swisher Sweet cigar, you wouldn't expect to find it. It would have been hidden in the backpack. Is that what you're saying?
Correct, yes.
But it was out in the open. As soon as you open the backpack, there it is?
Yes, like in the folder, yes.
We also heard in court recently that Letecia talked about the same thing, but she called it a cigar. I guess I don't know if that's a South Carolina thing, but that's how she called it. But they talked also in court about Letecia renting a car the morning after the murder, and that was the same morning that she picked up Gannon's dad from the airport. She told both Gannon's dad, Al, and Harley that she rented the vehicle because she didn't want to put miles onto her vehicle because she has a lease, which is ridiculous. Of course, it's Letecia, but it's ridiculous because the day before, Letecia drove all the way north to Petco to buy these dog clothing, so it was said, and even though that there were other pet stores closer to her home, and she also went outside of Colorado Springs with her own vehicle. So obviously we know that was a lie, and as I always say, lie, lie, manipulate, lie. But Harley heard multiple stories from Letecia as to what happened, and we know Al has as well, but she was told that Gannon went to a friend's, that he was missing and must be with an older brother, that they are trying to frame Letecia herself. Oddly, while Harley was on the stand, they didn't talk or ask questions about the tales of Eduardo or the fictional Quincy that Letecia had introduced to the storyline to Al and to the authorities. Harley mentioned that Letecia turned off her Life 360 app, which gives location information, and we know also that Letecia's phone was also turned off, among other things. Harley talked about the day that they went to the Stauch residence to go get the belongings out of the house. There were police there and checked the items that were being removed. I'll talk about that more in a minute. But Letecia repeatedly told Harley that she was being treated crappy by the police and that they are asking her dumb questions. What they didn't mention was that Letecia went in 2 hours late to the interview with the police, and she pulled out all kinds of stunts in there. Surprise, surprise. She said that she had to be taken to the hospital because she was complaining about chest pains, but then also she was pretending that she didn't know her own name to the medics. And then prior to that, just right before that, she said she peed herself and she didn't know what to do about that. And it just goes on and on with Letecia. It's quite embarrassing, really. She acts like a toddler, and there's many more instances that I'm sure I'm going to talk about in the next few videos. Now, they briefly touched on Letecia getting out of the hospital and Harley and her coworker picking Letecia up, but they didn't pick her up at the hospital. They picked her up at a Taco Bell nearby. And the coworker testified earlier that Letecia made a bizarre statement when she came into the vehicle and said that she hopes that the coworker doesn't think that they are a bunch of murderers, which is a really odd statement to make, and the coworker took notice. Now, by January 30th, just 3 days after Gannon's murder, Letecia wanted to skip town, so Harley testified that she gave her resignation on the 30th. She talked about driving to Marshall's to pick up some clothes and that she was handcuffed in the store and it was upsetting. Also, Harley was being followed by the police, which is actually Letecia as well, but Letecia was sitting in the back of the vehicle. They didn't bring this up with Harley, but Letecia was sitting in the back of the vehicle and acting very oddly, and undercover cops were following them that day. Now, while Harley was inside the marshals and Letecia was outside, Harley was confronted and was handcuffed, and then outside they gave a warrant to Letecia and said that we're going to take Harley's car and her phone, and Letecia had the keys, and like a child, Letecia was looking for ways out, and she ended up fleeing basically and running and chucking the keys across the parking lot, and it left the officers a little confused, but they worked it out. They grabbed her and they took the vehicle and the phone. That wasn't mentioned in Harley's testimony in detail like that. But the next day, Letecia did that interview, you know, the ridiculous one with her back turned, and told a different story of what went down, lying the entire time to the world of what went down. So the next day, Letecia's aunt came to town and rented a van, and they went to the Stauch residence to load up some of their items. Letecia told Harley that they're going to go start somewhere fresh. While they were at the house, Harley stated she didn't see the large green suitcase that later Gannon would be found in. And that afternoon was when that ridiculous interview that took place. And Harley briefly talked about, you know, being asked on camera if she saw Gannon or not the night before his disappearance.
I was just asking about the hike.
Yes, so I came home later that evening. I was at work, and I can verify that he was there that night.
So there was a hike that you guys went on, but then you guys came home.
Yes.
Where'd you guys go hiking?
Garden of the Gods.
Oh, yes. Okay. I guess when.
And then we ate Burger King afterwards, so, you know.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then it just was, I'm going to go to play at a friend's house.
Now, after that interview, they went to the hotel. That's where their side of the family would meet up with them. It was Letecia's mom, aunt, and brother Dakota who testified as well. More on him in another video. But while at the hotel, Letecia said she needed to go and get dog food and borrowed her aunt's rented Nissan Altima. Both Harley and Dakota testified that it took some time for Letecia to return and wondered, you know, why the heck it's taken so long. Letecia told Harley that her GPS wasn't working, so she got lost. But what really was going on at the time was Letecia was returning to the area of Palmer Lake where Gannon was temporarily kept, and must have picked him up at some point, because the next morning Letecia rented another van and transferred the suitcase to the van. And one thing to note about the van, it was initially thought that the van that showed up at Letecia's house to pack her stuff in was the same van that was, you know, that was driven across the country, where Gannon would be in the back of that van, but it wasn't. Letecia rented a new one because her aunt didn't want to rent that van for longer. And in previous videos, I stated that there wasn't a partition because I thought it was that van, but now it's another van and it does have a partition, although there was holes and stuff in it, so it's not completely solid. Now, while on this road trip, Letecia stopped and bought a new phone. Harley said she was on the phone a lot. She stated that she didn't smell anything while in the van, and that Letecia insisted that they keep the air conditioning on. When Harley was questioned about why she didn't question Letecia and all the oddities that were happening, Harley stated that she would be considered being disrespectful to her mom, and that she would often get backhanded in the face.
Now, as you're sitting in that van listening to these conversations, did you ever ask your mom, what are we doing? Why are we leaving? Gannon's missing. Why aren't we out looking for him? That kind of stuff?
No, I didn't really question her a lot.
Why didn't you question your mom?
I would be told that, like I'm being like disrespectful or like talking back.
And what would happen if you were being disrespectful or talking back to your mom?
Sometimes she would like backhand me
Where would she backhand you at?
to my face.
Is that why you just didn't say anything and you sat in the van and went wherever she was driving?
Yes.
Overruled.
Surprise, but yet no surprise, right? Let me know below. Now, the prosecution talked about Harley was considered potentially an accessory, but no longer is. But the question was asked in court, did you help your mom throw that suitcase over the bridge? Which is what we've all been wondering, how Harley would know or not know. And she said, no, I did not. They didn't go into deeper details about it, though. They touched on if Letecia may have left in the middle of the night, if Harley was a sound sleeper, you know, that kind of thing. everything was discussed, but nothing in detail. But back in the affidavit, it said that Letecia's phone pinged in the area of the bridge, which was 3 miles away from the hotel. And obviously we know that Gannon was found later on where the bridge is. Now, in earlier testimony from Letecia's brother Dakota, he said he saw Letecia struggle with that suitcase and even offered to help her with it, but she wouldn't let him. That's when they transferred the suitcase and the stuff, I should say, from the other van to the new van. Now, Harley said that Letecia was then arrested and she hadn't seen her mom since that day. And obviously, she saw her mom in court that day. But with each witness and expert taking the stand, the prosecution diligently asks about Letecia's demeanor, her mental health. Are there any aliases that she goes by? And all are emphatically no, and that Letecia, although acting paranoid, didn't seem to have any mental health issues to Harley. They asked if Letecia went by any other names or visited any countries, specifically names like Jasmine, Taylor, Victoria, Harmony, Christine, Little Lucia, Maria Sanchez, and asked if she ever spoke in a Spanish accent. That I would like to see. I don't know about you, but at this point, The only name that Harley did say she used was Taylor's, because she said she didn't like her name and that she would use it for social media. But the prosecution finally asked, do you still love your mother? And Harley got visibly upset and didn't answer, and the prosecution just said no further questions.
Was your mom pretty athletic?
Yes.
Was she capable of lifting heavy objects?
Yes.
Overruled.
Do you know how much Gannon weighed?
He was little, so he didn't weigh a lot.
Was your mom capable of carrying his body in a suitcase, picking it up and throwing over a bridge rail in Pensacola, Florida?
Yes.
Is that easy for you to say?
No.
You still love your mother? I'll strike that, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
But it was then the defense's turn, and he asked questions like if Harley saw her mom cry in the closet, and that Letecia was in a car accident. And he was saying that Letecia said that was because she saw Harley's dead father in the seat of the vehicle. That's why there was an accident. Harley, you could see, was quite surprised at that. She said she didn't know what the reason was, not that it was because she saw, her dead dad in the vehicle. It's interesting what the defense is trying to do. He's not being successful, in my opinion. But Letecia did tell Harley, apparently, that she had ovarian cancer at one point. And the defense also asked, well, what about, Leticia's job before Gannon died at Christmas time? Didn't she quit it because of her mental health? Harley said, no, it's because she wanted to be a flight attendant. Letecia would also say things to Harley like she's going to commit suicide, and then act the next day like everything was fine. But you know what? In my opinion, it's not looking good for the defense so far. What do you think? The defense then switched gears and tried to say that Harley manipulated the situation when it's her benefit. He was talking about a GoFundMe setup because Harley was being supported by a family member and then was cut off. And then he was saying that she was manipulating because she said she lost her mom and dad, alluding that her mom, Letecia, was dead. But she said, that's not what I was trying to do. That was pretty much the 7 hours or 5 hours or however long of a testimony it was for Harley. I'm sure that was really difficult to do, that in front of her mom. I don't know. I didn't look yesterday while I was going through, because I was typing notes and whatever, but I didn't see Letecia's demeanor, because she's actually getting in a lot of trouble for flipping the bird and doing all kinds of things in court. Surprise, surprise, but no surprise. And the judge actually reprimanded her, said, look, you keep it up and I'm going to chain you to the desk. So, and a couple of other things he said. He could give her 6 months for each and every inappropriate behavior. But he gave her a stern warning. Hopefully she listens, but we still got time. Let me know below what you think so far in the trial. Let me know what you want to see next and me to dive into. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you soon.